Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is the Obelisks of Mars. Before we get into it, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support Astral Club on Patreon, you can do so. And when you do so, you join new folks like Andrea S., who's an Astral Scout, and Ellen C., who is also an Astral Scout. And I thank both Andrea and Ellen very much for their support. And you can join them, and when you do, you get advanced episodes on Sunday, commercial-free, a library of downloaded episodes for your podcast app, and a Patreon email where we can talk back and forth. And you'll find the link in the description. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like a private lesson to learn how to astral project, be glad to work with you. All you have to do is go to the description, and there you will find an email. You can just send a request for more information, and I'll send that along to you. Before I get into the Obelisks of Mars that you maniacs forced me to go after, I'd like to mention that I read recently that Elon Musk has been given the go-ahead to test his Neuralink brain implant on humans. The FDA gave him the thumbs up. Whether you think that is a wonderful development or whether you think that is ominous as heck, either way, it's going forward. So Neuralink, or perhaps in the future, Link, is on its way, people. It's on its way. The train's coming down the tracks. We better be ready for it. I'm not going to have to worry about it, but y'all might have to, and certainly your kids will. Okay, now, for anybody who didn't check out my recent episode on going back to the past of Mars, where I went back to around 4 billion to around 3.8 billion or so, and I examined it. I encourage you to check it out before you get into this one, so you're not going to be completely lost. But if not, I'll sum it up for you quickly. I went to Mars about 4 billion years ago. I saw that there was an ocean. So it was wet and it had an atmosphere that was blue, and water that was very much free flowing. It probably wasn't tropical. It looked a little on the colder side, but it was obviously able to have liquid water. I dived into the water and I didn't really locate any life forms that I could identify, which in and of itself probably isn't surprising for a planet that is that new. But who knows? Maybe there was microscopic stuff I didn't pick up. At any rate, I then progressed to around 3.8 billion years. It looked like the ocean had shrunk somewhat, and I wondered if that was due to perhaps Mars beginning to cool, lose its magnetic shield perhaps, and start losing atmosphere, which would eventually take away its water and lead to eventually, some billions of years later, the Mars that we have today. Before I left, though, I tripped across, somewhere around 3.8 billion years ago, a very odd device, which I found was surrounding or going around the equator of Mars. There were 12 obelisks, which is a better term. For some reason, I couldn't think of the term, and I used pylons, but obelisk is a much more accurate description. And I theorized that these, it was somewhere around 100 foot tall, around 30 meters tall. It looked to me like an antenna of sort, although it was thicker at the bottom. It was kind of branching out like it was some sort of platform. And I assumed that, well, I guessed that maybe it was some sort of a signal or an antenna because I felt electromagnetic radiation coming off of it. And when I flew around the equator, I saw, like I said, that there was 12 of these things. I then was pulled back into my body, and to be honest with you, I thought that projection was over with. For me, the obelisks were going to be just another mystery that the universe is always throwing at us. But y'all weren't going to let that rest. Oh, no. Everybody came after me saying, well, are you going to go back? Are you going to find out more about them? And as I said, it hadn't occurred to me to do that because trying to locate a specific time billions of years ago where perhaps these things were built or being used is not an easy thing to do. But I could tell pretty quickly that this was not going to be one mystery that you were going to let me just let lie like a sleeping dog. So I said I would do my best, and so therefore I had to do my best. I wasted a number of projections in unsuccessful attempts to reach Mars, to get back to the proper time frame, to try to find those pylons again, and to try to locate their origination. And I failed, and I failed, and I failed, and I failed. And finally, this afternoon, I was able to take a nap. I was able to get more information on these things. And I hope it's satisfying to you, because I would like to do other things and with my life than just continually project back to Mars. So hopefully you maniacs will be satisfied with this extra information. Okay, so what happened? As I said, I finally was able to make it back there today. And when I appeared, at first, there was nothing. There was the sea and Mars, but I didn't see any of the obelisks. So I projected a little bit, nothing. Projected a little bit further, nothing. A little bit further. Finally, I found myself standing in the empty field in this dry land here on Mars. There wasn't any plants that I could see. And above, hovering above, was this gigantic, I guess, ship, but it looked like a beehive. Imagine a giant metallic beehive in the sky. It was within the atmosphere, but it was thousands of feet up, hovering above me. So as I'm staring at this thing with my astral mouth agape, things started to fall out of it. It's like out of each little honeycomb, something fell, something silvery fell. And I actually reacted because, when you have a physical body, you're used to reacting. And I saw these balls falling, and I actually retreated quickly because, you have this feel, oh my God, that's going to hit me. And that's your first reaction with a physical body, even though, of course, I was completely safe. But I moved out of the way, and I watched all of these silver balls falling to Mars. And as they fell, they rolled. So perhaps that was how they dealt with the energy of the fall, so that they wouldn't get damaged. They fell and then they rolled. I would say, I tried to count them, but they were constantly moving around. I would say somewhere around 50 of these things had fallen from the sky. And as I stared at them, I began to see, out of what looked to me to be smooth metal, legs coming out. And they were transparent. It looked like, hard plastic, but it was see-through. And there was 8 legs coming out of each of these things, just jutting out suddenly. And then they started crawling around and coalescing over the area that I had originally thought that I had found my first pylon or obelisk. I got a little closer because, now I realized what a fool I was for retreating in the first place. And I saw that within the transparent legs, there was all these little fiber optic cables. Some of them were thinner, some of them were larger. And I imagined they were transferring energy. They were, obviously being used to manipulate this thing. And they were all gathering together in a circle with a big empty space in the middle. This was extremely fascinating. I was a little creeped out because, despite the fact that they were obviously robots, they had this insectoid type appearance, that instinctively creeps us out, I think. Certainly creeps me out a little bit. But I was enraptured. I was just staring at these things as they were running around. And then as if there was a queue. They all formed up in a circle, and a little opening opened up. Now, just to give you a little bit more, a better look at these things, there was a giant solid silver ball in the middle, and I estimated it was about 2 meters or about 6.5 feet in circumference. And then jutting out were these transparent 8 legs that moved it around in all directions. I could see it can move back and forth, left and right. But then as I saw, there was this opening that was probably, the size of a large grapefruit, let's say, opened up in each of these solid silver balls. And a stream of silver metal, as if these things were spinning some sort of silver web, started being ejected from each one of these 50 or so balls. And it was as if they were casting something. And you could see they were building up the base at first. And once the base was built up, they started spinning this obelisk. And I watched as they created this thing, and they did it incredibly fast. And as it got taller and taller, they stopped being on the ground and started crawling up the obelisk so they could get closer to where the top was, and they continued spinning, while some of the other ones just kind of backed off a little bit, and while the ones that were crawling up the obelisk were spinning it higher and higher and higher, till finally it was done. Now, you would think that it would be very irregular, but as I reported in my last episode, it was smooth. It looked to me like it had been, formed in one piece, not something that was spun by 50 or so different alien robots. And it was quite fascinating to watch this. I got closer and closer, and when I did, one of these bots walked through me. Now, it doesn't really harm you, but when you're astral projecting, I don't know about you, but I generally avoid things walking through me because it's just an odd sensation. But it did it so quickly, and it moved in a backwards way, so I wasn't expecting it. And it just backed through me. And for that split second, I got this impression. Now, it wasn't words. It was visions of a sort. It was this understanding that I hope I got right, but what it was not an antenna. At least not the way we think of it. What it was designed to do, together with its brothers around the equator of Mars, it was meant to help, using some sort of electromagnetic energy, to maintain the magnetic field and therefore keep the atmosphere and water on Mars. Whoever this beehive civilization was, they had an interest in maintaining the liquid water and ostensibly the ability to sustain third-dimensional life on Mars, that it was important to this species, and that I saw in my mind's eye that there were 12 other beehive ships also doing the same thing around Mars. I wish I could tell you I got a lot more information than what I just relayed to you. But I'm quite frankly surprised that I was able to get that much, because, I've encountered a lot of alien things in my life, but this alien bot from 3.8 billion years ago was about as alien as anything I've ever encountered. When they were done, and as I said, they were done pretty quickly, the legs retracted back into the sphere. And looking at it, because I got kind of close, I couldn't see where they retracted. There wasn't any visible places where the legs had retracted. They began to heat up and to turn red. And I could feel the electromagnetic energy just pouring off them, the radiation pouring off them. And it actually felt really good. But just once again, as this weird reaction that you have when you have a physical body, I backed off. And they blasted off, one by one, just blasted off, heading back to the ship. And I could see when I focused my astral vision that they were going back into the little honeycombs, each one going into its own little honeycomb, back into this beehive ship. So I went after them. I put my arms forth and I soared after them to see if I could get any more information. I wasn't able to get inside the ship because as I hovered above, I looked around me, and around the part of Mars that I could see, I saw there was these other ships. And I was just marveling at the size of this thing. And I was trying to scan it to see if I could sense anything, but I sensed there was some sort of intelligence superior to what I had observed when that bot went through me. But I couldn't get any more information. It was too alien. And I didn't sense bio life, because generally, no matter how alien bio life is, biological life, it usually emits some sort of bio radiation that I can pick up. Even if I can't decipher it, I can sense it. And I didn't sense that there was any biological organisms inside this ship, that it was a ship that was programmed. I imagine it was probably run by some alien computer or AI. And this was all programmed for a specific purpose. In this case, to preserve the atmosphere and potentially life-giving planet of Mars. Were they successful long-term? I don't know. But you wanted to see how they got there. And so obviously there was some sort of an alien race that sent these ships there for this particular purpose. Was it a prelude to colonization? Was it a prelude to some sort of exogenesis where perhaps this alien race, it reminds me of Star Trek. There was these races called the Preservers. And what they would do is they would go from planet to planet and they would seed life and they would help to preserve a variety of life on alien planets because they really cared about that. Perhaps this race had a care like that. Or like I said, perhaps it was more selfish. Perhaps they were trying to ensure a livable base for their own race. I don't know. But obviously they had an interest in maintaining a livable Mars. Well, I hope you're satisfied with that information because I'm surprised that I was able to get this extra information, that I was able to target a specific time 3.8 billion years ago. Where the race came from, I don't know. I didn't get that sense. Besides, who knows? They say the universe is what? 13.7, 13.8 billion years old. I've seen some people claim that it might be twice that age. Who knows? At any rate, we're talking about some sort of civilization that existed 3.8 billion years ago. My guess is, based on just the knowledge of life on Earth, that whatever civilization put those obelisks on Mars, who knows how long they lasted? Who knows if they thrived, if they ended up seeding Mars with life, if they ended up colonizing? Who knows? Maybe eventually they came to Earth and did the same thing. Anything's possible. But the chances that they'd still be around 4 billion years later, I would say, is remarkably slim. So we'll probably never find out more. unless you guys try to torture me more. We'll never find out more about them, because the chances are, if their planet still exists or if their empire still exists somewhere, it exists only in buried ruins. Well, I hope you like that, because it cost me quite a bit to make happen. And if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button. That was a lot of work. Share it with those of like mind. Subscribe if you haven't already. Questions, comments, please leave them. What do you guys think? Do you think I was right about this attempt to maintain Mars's magnetic field and keep an ocean and an atmosphere there? Or do you think I'm wrong? It was something else? What questions do you have? What did you think about the episode? Any ideas, any comments at all are extremely welcome. And this is Rick. And as always, I'll see you on the astral plane.